Hello. We will be spending the next few minutes revising what neoclassical economists believe the impact of monetary policies are on the economy. For this purpose, I have now written a number of buzzwords or concepts that you'll be familiar with, and you should make sure to familiarize yourself with for full understanding of this part of the program. And I will use another bits and bobs of visual aid to simplify our comprehension. So if I will be writing a little bit, forgive me for that. All right, so let's start with the first two buzzwords that I've used. One is neoclassical economies. We have studied that there are two main schools of thought in economics, which are divided mostly by their belief on how markets behave in the short run. Neoclassical economists believe that markets have the ability, or should be allowed to have the ability, to adjust automatically to any change in the economy, and therefore there is no real difference between the short run and the long run. Keynesian economists instead believe that markets don't function very well in the short run, and therefore adjustment will eventually happen in the long run, but that will take a long time, and therefore the government should try to make things better in the short run, or try to speed up what the short run adjustments are. We will be concentrating on neoclassical economists for these few minutes, and we'll put on aside Keynesian economists. Going back a little bit and create a micro foundation for this little lessons. Neoclassical economists believe that because all markets function perfectly, no government intervention, no unions, no other impediment, the invisible hand will help every market to reach an automatic and instantaneous equilibrium. This means that all the markets are going to be in equilibrium, where consumers and suppliers are going to be perfectly happy, or markets will clear. This will have two particular consequences. The first one is that, in particular, the labor market is going to be in full equilibrium, and therefore all the people that want to work are going to be filling all the existing vacancies. And on the other hand, because all the markets are in equilibrium, producers will be able to produce exactly the right amount of output, which will maximize their profit. But if this is looked at a macroeconomic level, that means that the whole economy is going to be in a full long-run equilibrium in which all the producers are maximizing their profit. But that also means that unless there is an external shock in either technology or cost of productions, producers will not want to change the level of their production, because otherwise they will decrease their total profit. Now, if we graph this in XY graph, where on the y-axis we have price level, and on the x-axis we have real output, this means that our aggregate supply will look like this, where we have reached a level of output, which is the level of output of full employment, which maximizes our profit. And this will be completely independent by the price level, and therefore our line is going to be completely vertical. Now, the other side of this point is the aggregate demand, and the aggregate demand we know that represents the total demand for resources in an economy. And we have seen that this is represented by this equation, where this represents consumption, investment, governmental expenditure, and net export. And this is the demand of all the different resources from the different sectors. We know that this is downward sloping with respect of the price level, and this can be represented like this, where the aggregate demand is a downward sloping curve, and this will create a macroeconomic equilibrium in E at the price level P star. Now, demand side policies are particular policies that the government may wish to use in order to affect the economy, the general economy. This can be done generally because unemployment is too high or inflation is too high, or anyway to lead the economy to a more favorable place. We have two types of demand side policy: monetary policies and fiscal policy. We leave fiscal policies, which is affecting the economy using governmental budget, either expenditures or taxation, and we'll concentrate on monetary policies, which is changing the the macroeconomic levels using either quantity of money, which we'll leave on the side for the moment, or interest rate. Interest rate is, we can simplify as saying that is the price of money. In other words, interest rate affects borrowing and savings. If I'm a saver and interest rate increases, I will be more inclined to save today to consume more tomorrow. And therefore, it's going to be my reward for withholding consumption today to consume more tomorrow. And therefore, if I save a capital of 100 and interest rate is 5%, I know that tomorrow I'll be able to get in return 105. On the other hand, for borrowing, interest rate is the price of borrowing money today in order to repay them next year. And therefore, as we were saying, if I borrow 100 today, tomorrow I know that I will have to pay back 105. And therefore, like all prices, this will affect the demand and supply of money. So if a government were to wish to decrease aggregate demand, it may wish to do so by increasing interest rate. Now, as we were saying, because interest rate is the price of money, if I increase interest rate, that means that borrowing becomes more expensive. Now, I can borrow money for either extra consumption, so I want to borrow money to buy a car, or to invest, so basically to have a capital to start out on my company. But if interest rate increasing, borrowing becomes more expensive, and therefore I will do less of consumption and less investment. On the other hand, interest rate is the reward for saving. Now, because now savings becomes better because I'm going to get rewarded more, that means that I will want to save more. Now, savings is the difference between income, which we'll consider to be fixed, and consumption, which also means that if I want to save more, I need to sacrifice some of my consumption. But that means that an increase in interest rate will have a double impact on consumption. I will have to consume less, and on investment. But this means that all of this, an interest rate increase will have a negative impact on aggregate demand. Sorry. All right. Now we have established this. That also means that we can now draw our new aggregate demand curve in our graph. Because we have a decrease in aggregate demand part, we'll have a shift inward of the aggregate demand 1, and the new point of equilibrium is 1. Now, this is quite interesting because this is one of the key points of neoclassical economics, which is because we are affecting the demand side behavior, and more importantly, because interest is a nominal variable, it will have just nominal impact. As a matter of fact, the new equilibrium is still at the same level of output, but at a lower price level. In other words, monetary policy had no impact in the real world. And this is a conclusion to what neoclassical economists think about demand-side policy. Because they're aimed at changing demand rather than supply, and because the two decisions are completely independent, demand-side policy will have nominal impact, meaning change in the price level, but no real input. Nobody is going to be winning in this change. The output, the level of unemployment, etc., is going to be the same. The level of wealth is going to be the same because there is going to be just a shift in prices. So we're adding zeros to our prices, but there is no real change in the economy. The only change is twofold. The first one, we are creating uncertainty by changing prices. People will be confused, and in the short run, they may make choices that are not optimal. And on the other hand, we have the government using resources to try to change the economy, which is just a waste of resources because the final outcome is not better in any way in the real economy, and therefore we have wasted resources.